What time is it? I can get at least one more run in. We'll see where time lands after that. Okay, here we go. So Final Fantasy 15 speedrunning. Movement mechanics that are notable. First off is that jumping is the fastest thing you can do. And sure, that sometimes changes depending on the location. Like, they weirdly nerf it in some dungeons. Not entirely sure why. I think that was actually faster to just jump across there than to swing, because there is an animation. Anyway. So if you want to go the fastest in... the fastest you can, you're pretty much jumping all the time. There are other movement mechanics that are faster than jumping. Walking is not one of them. Running, strangely enough, is not one of them. You can't just run. There's a sprint option. You have stamina, and we actually make use of that in a little bit. But it's still faster to jump, strangely. Speaking of jumping, give me a second here. Okay. That was kind of the more perilous part there, and I'm over it now. There are two mechanics that I use in this run to skip some things that were definitely not intended to have been skipped. One of them uses that stamina bar that I showed off a little bit ago, because as a mechanic of the game, you can, if you have good timing, refill your stamina bar by hitting the run button at a very specific time. And in addition to refilling your stamina bar, that also gives you just a slight forward boost. And so there is a very specific skip that I will be doing later in the dungeon that utilizes that. The other thing that we use that you might have noticed a couple of times already, and you will definitely notice right here as I use it, is an attack. Specifically attacking with daggers. It does that weird fun spinny thing that just gives more distance to the jump than you otherwise get. Other things to watch out for, though, as far as movement is concerned, are animations. Because I like to put it this way. Noctis is his own character. Noctis is not the player. He is his own being, his own entity. And as the player, I can give him suggestions, and he will take them or not, and do whatever he wants. And so if I try and give him a suggestion while he's in the middle of an animation, he just won't take it. And there are many times when I'll just completely lose an input because he happened to be in the middle of it. Oh, let's not die to spikes, please. Because he happened to be in the middle of an animation at the time. And so, whoop. And there you see with the knives as well. They're swinging with the daggers. And so the biggest one that's a problem with that is the recovery animation. If he falls too far, then he has to wait to stand back up, and that can get that can be troublesome sometimes. Make me miss cycles or run into a dangerous area. Another fun thing about this dungeon specifically is that he can still move in cutscenes. So to pull that off, you have to first off know when cutscenes are happening, where the camera will be, because movement at that point is relative to the camera position. So you have to press the correct button for that. It might be faster to take my other route here. We'll have to see that sometime in the future. Like that. I don't understand why he stepped backwards there, and that has sometimes caused me to fall off the edge. And the fact that I didn't there was more, I think, luck than anything, which is unfortunate. It's unfortunate when the run comes down more to luck than anything else. But sometimes it just does. Where was I going with this? I don't know. I had another thought. Oh yes, moving in cutscenes. So you have to know where in the cutscene he is, where in the cutscene you are. And just be prepared for all of that.
Oh.
Know when you're jumping off ledges, how far can you jump? Ah, bollocks. How far can you jump? If you're going to be falling far, what direction do you fall so that the roll at the end doesn't just roll you completely off of the edge, which happens more often than I'd like to admit. So here's a really good example. Even with run, you can't really outstrip this beast of a thing that's moving back and forth in the room. But with jump, you can you actually outpace it. So a really good example of jump just being the fastest movement method in the game. And that's not quite true. There are faster movement methods. Warp striking is faster, but that's disabled here in Pitioss. And chocobos, I think, are faster than jumping. I'm actually not as sure about that one because they have stamina and the give and take. There's a bit of give and take there that I'm not quite sure about. But for the most part, jumping is the least resource-intensive thing to get you moving quickly. Now, of course, that changes in certain parts in the any % / New Game Plus route, the full game routes that aren't just this random optional side dungeon. Because at times you play as other characters. Specifically, there is a time when you play as Gladio just because it's faster than the Noctis section through the same content. And he's actually faster to run than to jump, so that was a good example there of just making sure you know where you're going to roll, having to line it up correctly so that you don't just immediately die. Here is waiting for the recovery animation and hoping that it gets done in time for you to actually get off the platform at the right spot. So we're in this tilted room now, which is tricky, is the best way that I like to describe it. Not because, not just because of the odd geometry. Like the first time you go through this, the first time I went through this, it was very difficult for me to know what was and was not a surface I could jump on. Which things are at the correct 45-degree angle that they won't just immediately shuck Noctis off of them. Okay. Interesting. So there's a little bit of that. Also, just the fact that I, so far, have not found any good skips in this room. This is the closest thing I had to a skip, is just jumping over that corner there and landing down here first. The only other thing that you kind of have on your side in this room is just knowing the path, knowing the route, so that you don't get distracted by everything else, every other direction that you could go. Man, words did not fit in my mouth right there. But then we get into this, which is just so much fun. Suddenly, Final Fantasy 15 is two-dimensional. Which is unfair, because it's definitely still three-dimensional. You can still fall off the front. And off the back in some cases. Mostly the front. In most cases, the back is covered. But they're just like, oh, we're doing a platformer. Platformers, what do platformers have? Platformers have 2 dimensions, right? We should make it 2-dimensional. Like, okay, sure. Whatever you say. And this is the part where I kind of need to pay more attention because I have a tendency to just accidentally right here at the end. But 'twas not the case today. For today's case, we are complete. And then, boop. And believe it or not, this is actually faster than climbing up the rest of that ramp all the way to the statue. And here we get into statue skip. I'll explain more as we get closer, but it does. This is where we take advantage of the stamina refilling boost that I mentioned earlier. Also worth noting, the any percent for Pitioss, I think that's too early. Yep. The 80% for Pitioss also uses the stamina boost mechanic to just completely skip over all of the dungeon, basically. It's, as we get closer to the end, you'll see that the end of the dungeon is right next to the beginning of the dungeon. It's just like a long jump away, a longer jump than Noctis can usually make away. And so, when enterprising speedrunners find a mechanic like the... let's make sure I land on this. Nope. Fell too far. Dang it. I was hoping I could get this first try, but I haven't even been able to get to the spot to do the skip yet, which is just slightly unfortunate. Can we just get up here, please? Thank you. What in the world was that? What was that, Noctis? There are any number of things that I could blame that on. I'm going to blame it on the fact that I'm fairly certain I hit the jump button and he just didn't. There's also the possibility that I just didn't hit the jump button. Okay, now we come up here. Okay, here we are. So the first thing we have to do, the first step to this, is draining our stamina meter. Because as I said, this skip requires that we refill the stamina meter. And I have found that if I shove my nose right into this exact crack in the wall, that helps me time when I need to run pretty easily, pretty simply. So right about now, I need to take off and swip. Oh, and just fail it. And just fail it entirely. That's fun. I will note that on the counter, I am currently more than 30 seconds behind my pace from the last run, which is slightly unfortunate, but oh well. I'm still on a good pace for the full dungeon, so I'm okay with that.
This is ridiculous.
Say it now. Okay. Here we go. And so again, with the draining our stamina, this is a part where it feels like it might be worthwhile to get a lower level Noctis for my save. 1, 2, 3. Because stamina does, your stamina bar does get bigger, or more expansive. I don't know. You have more stamina as you get a higher level. Okay, let's take this now. There it is. So you notice we had to use both things there, which is the point of having the of using the stamina boost in any place where it's used, is because the amount of forward momentum you gain with the daggers is not enough. You have to use the daggers plus a little bit more, and that's where the stamina boost comes in. Because that stamina boost gives you that little bit more that you need to then be able to swing the daggers and actually make it. And it almost feels like you could be okay with just one or the other. No, use both. Use both, otherwise you miss. If you don't land on the right spot, you actually just kind of fall off, which is most unfortunate. So we're here above the statue again. I don't know that it's necessary to swing there, honestly. I think you might have enough distance without, and then you don't have the recovery animation after the swing to deal with. I kind of just do it because I saw someone else do it. So I should do some testing of that. Whoop. So we've been going around through the depths of this place. We obviously had an elevator take us up at one point, but this kind of weird darkness area of the dungeon. And now we see something that looks slightly familiar and another button to hit. And oh my goodness, we're back, right back where we started. And so this is actually, this platform here that I just landed on is where the 80% route goes. It's not too difficult to make it to that. Well, sure, then. We'll just fail completely. It's not too difficult to make it to that platform with the sprint, or the stamina boost, and daggers. So the 80% is seconds long, like maybe 90 seconds, I think. I think the 80% record is less than 2 minutes. I think it's less than a minute and a half, honestly. Oh, I didn't split when I got past scaffold room. Oops. No, my split on that is wrong now, but I don't care. Alright, so we skipped these buttons earlier, so we have to come back and get them now. But to make sure that we can actually get back, I'm gonna walk past them for a second and come down here and go ahead and open up this shortcut. There's several of these shortcuts throughout the dungeon. These are the only two that I need for this route. In fact, I think they're the only two that are needed for any route, if I'm being honest. I can't really imagine a way where time when you would need. Oh, bother. Well, okay then. That's I just realized that I forgot a button. Which means that both of my runs so far have been null and void. Great. Just great. Okay, I'll figure that out later. That'll just add a little bit of time to the first room. Because there is a button right at the beginning to send the elevator back up. And if you're doing it on all buttons, you need to hit that button. I kind of forgot that it existed. So, could we maybe not hear Noctis? This is interesting. Interesting and unusual. Alright, there we are.
Yes.
Okay. Let's do a little less failing here. We'll go here. We'll jump up here. We'll jump over here. Come down here. Jump over here. Boom. And then I'm going to take the split there. Well, 2 minutes ahead of where I had it last time, but that's fine. Okay. Then we come over here. We come up here, hit this button. Oh, and fall off the edge. Which is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. We come up here, which leads to over here, which leads me up here. Whoop. And over here. I have not been doing as good in this room recently, which leads me to believe that I need more practice in here. So I might, well, that was interesting. You know what, for completion's sake, while I'm here, let's just go ahead and come back here and hit this button. So I think for a full, or a better route for that, since obviously that's not ideal, is going to be doing it right at the top of at the very beginning of the dungeon. But if I want this run to actually count, I have to hit all the buttons, and that's one of the buttons, so it has to be hit. Alright, now we hit this button. We fall off the edge. We're over here now. We wait for you to get out of the way. We come down. Oh, I have to jump there, apparently. Why does this void me out back over to here? This is what I don't understand. I apologize. I'm getting a little bit heated. I don't actually apologize. I'm kind of annoyed right now. Mostly at myself. Sure, why not just be here? This is exactly where I wanted you, Noctis. That's right. Okay. Jump here. We fall off the edge. I said fall off the edge. Okay, it appears that Noctis does not like jumping off the edge in a cutscene, which is probably a good thing, but I wish he would. It would make my life simpler. Then we hit that button. We've hit all the buttons except for the very last one at the escape elevator. So we'll go ahead and get over there now and fall. We'll just fall. Why not? Boy. So this has been rough. It's not getting better. My endings have been rough, very rough lately. And I mean, that's just kind of the nature of reset heavy speedruns, is there are areas where you just don't ever get to if you're constantly resetting at the beginning. So you get the beginning down pat and then just never practice the end of it. Which feels wrong. It feels like actually advice that I got from my band teacher way back in high school. Is don't just practice the same bits over and over, because then you'll get really good at the beginning part of that bit and you'll never learn the ending. Okay. So that was abysmal.